how. And the same person is a theorist which has knowledge for and about best practice. So they know what and they know why. They're not just carrying out some method or something. They know why it's like this. And we are educating developers. That's why innovation has a very strong focus in the education. The professionals have to work not only best practice, but next practice. So, in former times, I'm quite sure we educated professionals who carried out a method, carried out, okay, this is how to do it, and we do it. But it's not like this anymore, because time is changing, people is changing, society is changing, everything is changing very fast. So we are educating developers. In this education, and not only in this education, but for me, in it's an issue for the pedagogical field anyway and anyhow. It is that it is based on dilemmas and Shespss' concept of balances. And what I have tried to do here is to point out some of the essential dilemmas and paradoxes which the education is based upon. One of them is the profound philosophical pedagogical question about authority and freedom. How to raise and how to educate. Authority, which has to do with you will have to do this in this way, and I will test you, and so on. For me, this is an ongoing didactic reflection and discussion, and we discuss this constantly in this institution. Do we make education which is based on authority? You have to be here if you want to be a professional pedagogue, and we will make a list if you are here. Did you do your homework? We control you, and so on. Or do we have a focus on freedom? You will learn this because you get interested, because you get enthusiastic, and so on and so on. We also teach these topics when we teach pedagogics, the lessons of pedagogics, of course. How to raise a child, how to work with a family who's beating up their child. Authority, freedom. What do we do? Another dilemma or balance we are dealing with constantly is the one that has to do with evidence and critical reflection. In Denmark, we have a tradition of critical reflection. That knowledge and aims of working with people, ways of gaining knowledge, ways of dealing with the world, with the persons, with each other, and so on, is by critical reflection. can it really be so? Or could we think about this in another way? Is there another perspective? You tell me this, but there's also this perspective and this perspective. Right now, we... Yeah.
One of the things that we see when we go out into the field where people are working, in all of our BA programs that has to do with people, when I get out there and talk to them and look at what they do, our professionals, they are actually weak in this respect, that they are not, when they are working, they are not able to see things from enough angles, typically. So they have like a very small, narrow perspective on the situation, which rules out a lot of all of the elements in the... So even though we try to emphasize that it's very important for them to be able to take different positions and look at the same problem from different positions, both theoretically and practically, it is still difficult to perform it in practice. And I think if to criticize our own professionals, especially those that have been professionals for some years and a long time ago they went to school and had their education, they have still, I think, problems, a lot of them, in using more than one perspective. They all, okay, I got one perspective, this is what I'm going to use, and then they start acting. And usually they won't reach their goal because they haven't thought of all the other possibilities. Usually they won't, and this is research-based, they don't reach their goal because it's not a holistic approach they're using. They're using a sort of a partial understanding of the problem, and using that will get you nowhere. So one of the things we do a lot when we teach teachers that have, postgraduate education, is trying to broaden and give them that pattern of reflection where they take many perspectives on one case. Otherwise, they won't succeed.
No, yeah, but it's really a dilemma. It's really a paradox, because in the theoretical part of the education, this is in one way easy. I mean, we talk about it, and it doesn't have a consequence. I mean, no children are dying or anything. It doesn't have a consequence. Oh, we could talk about it like this, and we can talk about it like that. When we go to the practical part of the education, but also the work, the professional work, everything gets very complex from critical reflection. So I think what often happens is that in the work placement, that's also what the students are telling us. There is a lack of this. There's not a lot of critical reflection. And when I do it as a student, they say, who are you to criticize? So definitely there's a gap here between the theoretical room and the practical room. What we see right now is a general and for me a very strong tendency for a demand of evidence and evidence-based knowledge. So, from my point of view, this evidence-based point of view, evidence-based demand for evidence-based knowledge also enters the theoretical part of the education. The question is, what is it that I fear? I fear that we will ask, so does it work or does it not work? And that's not a way of being critical. Does it work? Yes, it works. We have a lot of people or went wrong during this, but it's working.
But sorry. I'm sorry. I apologize to everybody, but I have to ask. If I understand correctly, you see the evidence and the critical reflections as the opposites.
Yes.
But I cannot see this like this, because for me personally, critical reflection is connected with.
So do you need some evidence to make some critical reflection? Or otherwise, yes, it is just talk and nothing
No,
else.
no, it's not just talk and nothing else. No, no, the evidence is not a bad word, but it's the way we deal with it. And what I see, I think I'm facing is that the evidence is reaching out for measurement of effectivity. Efficiency.
All the things that Brian talked about yesterday.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it has got to do with the competitive state. It has got to do
Yeah.
with looking at people only as means to an end for the state, as soldiers
Yeah.
of
Okay,
competition,
then
rather
evidence
than their
probably
whole
is not so.
beings with a value in itself. But
You know, if you tell me that you would like to criticize me, but without any evidence, yes, I would disagree with you. But if we are talking about measurement of effectiveness and discussion on one side and the other side about discussion about outcomes, yes, then I agree with this. But to criticize without evidence is something what I cannot accept.
No, that's not the point. The point is what is the
Yeah, I
goal,
understand
what
now.
is it that we are aiming for?
Sure, I
Yes.
understand, yeah.
can I comment?
Yeah.
A few things. The problem about evidence, when it comes in as strong as it does in Denmark right now, is, well, in the English terminology, there's this concept. It's slipping my mind now. Discretional space. Have you heard about it? Yeah. The discretional space is the space that the professional has to reflect and to act. When you have evidence coming in big time into the educations, into the practice, everywhere, then the discretional space becomes smaller because they don't have a lot of choices. They just have to do what evidence is. That is stupid for one reason. And that is, you cannot just have a small discretional space like this, because you will not be able to see the holistic picture of any problem on the ground. Now that's what we're fearing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what we're
fearing. But that doesn't mean that evidence is a bad thing.
No.
Evidence can be a very good thing, especially in the area of social policy and
Yes, but
social policy making.
also you said that you have strong tradition in
Very.
critical reflection, and somehow
Very.
I made some relation and connection with Copenhagen School and social construction and everything, and yes, but is it maybe just part of your tradition and your culture, and is it possible to implement that in other cultures?
That's a good
That
point.
is something what should be discussed,
Yeah, very good.
but not now.
Yes.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the tradition, what tradition? The educational tradition, or as we just said, Jesper and I, this critical reflection thing is no problem in the education in the theoretical terms. But as soon as we are out there where people are acting and a daily life has to run, maybe there's a lack of it.
This explanation was quite important for me, because we are facing the problem in practice. Most of our professionals, especially in social work center, would like, could you imagine, a smaller space for them, smaller space for discussion. Everyone would like to just give me checklist,
Yes.
and I will do everything what I have to do, and
Yes.
that's it.
Yes.
And this job is unfortunately impossible to be finished.
Yes.
Then you have to
With
work
that
on the
approach.
identity
Yes.
of that professional or that whole profession, because there's something wrong with the identity of it.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
But as I said, when you are aiming for the critical reflection, you open for complexity.
Sure, yeah.
So nice to have a list to check.
So I just disagree with those terms, nothing else.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
But it was good that you disagreed,
Hmm?
because it gave
Yeah, sure.
some good reflection, so please disagree some more.
It is by the Greek terms. It is not fact-based practice, it's
Yes.
evidence-based practice, so means that it comes from outcomes and efficiency, not from
Yeah.
data. And we even do not have data. And that's the
Ah,
problem.
yeah.
But also I believe that we in Serbia have tradition that people should, can be punished only if they do something. If they do not do something,
Yes.
anything, nothing will happen. But if they do something,
They
then
can
they
do
can be
something.
punished.
Yes.
So
Can
you
make
don't
mistake.
think, don't think. It's easier to have a checklist.
Yes.
Well, that-
It's better not to do anything than to be
Creative, then
punished.
you will be punished.
Yes.
I believe that's our tradition.
Yes.
It's not only in social protection, it is.
So it also has to do with identity,
Yeah.
and also has to do with a change of identity.
Sure. So you can be Don Quixote
Can I just
if you want to change something. but
Yes,
that's
come
not-
here.
I'll just say one thing. According to Van Lorentz, that is exactly why we have to keep and tell our students and stick to the fact that the identity as a social worker is one where uncertainty is important. Because you cannot have
You
certainty.
cannot know.
You cannot. And
There
the
is
more
no
you,
such a
the
thing
more you
as
use the
certainty.
holistic approach, the more uncertainty, but you'll have to live with it.
Yes,
It's just,
the keyword is certainty, yes, of
Yeah,
course.
and if there
Everyone
is-
would like to be certain, but
Yeah.
there is no such thing.
And by the way, a small story from practice here in Denmark. Some of the places where we have the most uncertainty is where violence occurs from users to practitioners. That creates a lot of uncertainty. I worked on one of those institutions with young people who were foster homes, yeah. So that created a lot of uncertainty. And what did the professionals do in that place? They started to believe like if it was a religion, in a specific way of doing this work. So they narrowed down their professional perspective, yeah? And it went ballistic. It exploded
Yes.
totally in violence because they were no longer able to see them from more than one angle. So it just got worse and worse and worse, this particular one. So uncertainty can also destroy practice and destroy whole organizations who start to believe like this is the only thing. We need to get rid of uncertainty. So we have a new God somewhere, a theory of kinds. Won't work, and it will create many problems in practice. So that's the other side of it, to balance the amount of uncertainty that people can live with.
Yeah, and at the same time recognize that when you have to do with human beings and your work is relationships with
Yeah,
people,
exactly.
there is of course uncertainty. You never know, huh? You never.
Social work, sorry, that we work with people and we deal with people and people are intentional.
Yes.
We never know
No.
how they are going to react on our interventions.
And we are people as well.
Yes.
We never
Yes.
know how they are going
And
to
we also not know what will happen, what comes out here. Yes.
Bad cocktail.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
But also it's not only responsibility on the worker. The other side has his or her responsibility, it's not only worker's responsibility, so. But someone will accept, depends on the other side, not only of the worker.
But in Denmark, the pedagogues, we say what's in it, what's contained in the work, and one of the things we say is you are responsibility about the relation. Yeah,
About the process, not about outcome. Yeah.
exactly.
About process.
Yes, the process and relation and the relation.
Yes, the relation is part of the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another paradox or dilemma or balance here I have pointed out is the balance between a perspective of curriculum and a perspective of Bildung.
Does everybody know what
Yeah.
Bildung is?
No.
It's a hybrid. Be well.
Translation.
Kind of be well.
Yeah. But you can, in English, like Brian said, there's not really an explanation. But if you should explain it in English, it's ethos, or the way you become a human being, your humanity.
Postaje.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. But it's ethos. What? I thought it was Serbian. What did you say? It was Serbian.
Just becoming or developing.
Yes.
Character,
Yes.
integrity,
Character
how to become a human with morals, ethics, existence, that kind of thing. Your personal development. That's Bildung, rather than the curriculum.
Yes.
Okay.
And it has other words also in English, but my point is to write Bildung, because this is the tradition that Danish Bildung and education and so on is based upon. And shortly, it's a focus or a perspective which looks at the individual with all the beautiful words that you throw around. Yeah, it has to do with the individual development and well-being, so to speak. So what you do when you are in a Bildung space, you look at the individual, and you are determined to be a pedagogue who is working with this individual's development and well-being. Curriculum is another way of thinking pedagogics and education. It is not the person, it is not the individual who's in focus. It is the aim, it's the goal. So how you go there, it doesn't matter. I don't care about the process as long as you get there. So if you have a lot of scratches and you get like this during the way, it doesn't matter, just that you get there. That's the important thing. And this is a dilemma or a balance which education and also pedagogics is facing right now, because for instance this list of competencies, you cannot change it. So it's a kind of a curriculum who tells what's the goal. I don't care how you get there as long as you get there. So what we fear, what we are concerned about is that this Bildung is pressed out of pedagogics and pedagogic work and educational work. I don't know. Maybe it's necessary. At least it's a balance. How do we balance this? In the schools for children, this one is getting very heavy at the time. They are being tested, national tests and so on, constantly. When you ask the children, which I did in a small research project, so what is the importance of being a pupil in the school? I was expecting they would say, to learn something. They did not. They said to pass the test. All right.
Excuse me, do you have some subjects like ethics and so on?
Sorry?
Professional ethics and so on in your curriculum?
Yeah. Of course, we teach. We have topics and subjects and projects and so on in the education, which has to do with this. Yes, a lot. But you can do this. I mean, you can deal with ethics and ethos and all these things without changing anything.
Yes, we can learn
Yes.
rules.
Yes.
Thank you.
So the balance is, okay, we are educating professional workers, and we think that the ethics and the ethos and all this is very important. It's not just a matter of entering the family, it's a matter of entering the family in an ethic way. So, if this one goes out of the education, maybe they will know about ethics without know anything or change anything, or because of course that's possible. It's no problem sitting in a room all alone for many years and study relations. I know everything about a relation, but I'm not able to meet someone.
So much about psychologists.
Yeah, and philosophers. We know everything about ethics, but we're not able to walk out. Another balance, which is both a process in education, but also a content. We teach very much topics that has to do with exclusion and inclusion. It's words familiar, yes. And probably some will also be critical here because I make it very, there's not a lot of reflection in this, it's just poor. Huh? Inclusion, how do we see social work as exclusive? For instance, er det mig, der gør det? Tror jeg.
Yeah, but the touch screen.
Oh, no.
It looks like it is, because when she touches it, it disappears.
Really?
It's like iPhone and iPad.
Oh, there was a sign saying
Yes.
Yeah.
it's going to be turned off?
Yes.
It was written that it will disappear in a minute.
Really?
Oh.
Yes.